Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar where we're going to be talking about how you can keep your development teams productive. As always with these webinars, this will be recorded, so this will be available after. So you can go ahead and check it out again, or if you happen to drop off halfway through, you can go and complete the webinar with the recording. There also will be a short survey at the end, so as you're listening, if you happen to have any feedback for us, for anything that wasn't covered, or maybe something that you'd like to see covered in the next webinar, please feel free to fill out that survey. It's just a couple of questions, pretty short, takes only a couple of minutes, and it's super valuable to us to let us know how we're doing on this one, and then what we can do better for the upcoming webinars as well. So as I said, today we're going to be talking about how we can keep teams incredibly productive as we scale. So we're going to be looking at topics like scalability and essentially how we can keep teams efficient and effective throughout that process. And before I go ahead and start jumping into the questions, because we've got an awesome panel here, I'm just going to go ahead and start handing over to them to do a short introduction so you can get a feeling of who they are, their backgrounds, what they're working on currently. And I think that'll all provide a really good context for this conversation I'm really looking forward to. So I'm just going to start by handing it over to Ryan.
Hey everybody, I'm Ryan Jackson. I'm a Senior Engineering Manager at Infinite Computer Solutions. We develop and deliver HR software via SaaS solutions. So we have a global team. This is a topic near and dear to my heart as our teams scale and descale. So excited to be here, Rob. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, it's I think it's during these times, it's probably a topic pretty near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, but I'm really excited to hear your insight. I'll take it over to Salman.
Hi, thank you, Rob. My name is Salman. I'm a Senior Engineering Manager at ZenHub, where we are building a software development focused project management tool.
We all need that, that's for sure. Awesome. Okay, and I'll finish it off with Manu.
Hey guys, I'm Manu. I'm leading product and design at Waldo, and Waldo, we are building a platform for your mobile testing automation.
Awesome. And my name is Rob Hedgepeth. I am a mobile architect at DraftKings. If you're not familiar with DraftKings, it's where you can go to gamble on all kinds of things. So I work on specifically on the mobile side, just a couple applications they have on that side. And we have certainly ran into, over the last few years, some scalability issues. So I'm really excited to hear what this panel has to say about it. Just keeping teams productive. Certainly things on our side, on DraftKings side, that we can learn from this, and I'm sure listeners out there as well. There's some things that we can pick up. So, the first thing first is, when we think about scalability, I'm interested, just kind of jumping straight into it. I think sometimes that we get into, how do you do this or how do you do this, but I'm kind of curious in like maybe the not so the great experiences over the last couple of years, or problems that you've seen with scalability and kind of growing teams in a productive manner. So I'll start first with Manu. Like, what have you seen, over the past couple of years? And it doesn't have to be, super elaborate, but just kind of set the stage for us.
So what I've seen, I think in the previous startup I was working, is like when we doubled the team, and we did it in the engineering team doubled in like less than a year. We've divide by 2 our productivity, and that was really painful because you have more people, so all the company think that you're going to be more productive, that you're going to deliver more, and you divide by 2. So that was pretty painful actually, and then you understand for the next one what's going to be your challenge and how you can avoid that to happen again. So I'm sure we're gonna discuss this today, but that was really like a good lesson on what should you do and what you should not do actually.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think that what we'll probably get into a little bit is that, basic math rules don't always apply, right? Adding on people just doesn't necessarily fix the issue. Ryan, I saw you smile. Anything to add to that?
No, I just agree with Manu. Like you have to really consider the impact of the team that's already there, right? So you're adding these folks on. It's not just about scaling them up and making them productive, but how do you not impact the people you're counting on to stay productive as you bring resources on board?
Yeah, makes sense. Salman, what about you? Anything that you've seen over the last couple of years?
My experience is pretty similar to what has already been covered, and it's as growing companies, sometimes we focus too much on being able to grow our team that we forget about getting ourselves prepared for that. It reminds me of the story of the village where they went on top of a hill to do the asking for the rain ritual, and no one brought an umbrella. So even if the ritual worked, like no one was prepared. So yeah, I think that's why it's on the like the tech leadership layer to prepare the team and the product and the processes for the time to grow the company and the user base and also the talent.
Yeah, well, I'll keep it here then, because you kind of mentioned something that I'm interested in. You talk about how, you know, it's kind of on leadership, and we don't necessarily have to dive just into the leadership level, but just in general, like how do you prepare, you know, a team, or, you know, what do you use from, you know, either a KPI standpoint or metric standpoint, or, you know, even a look at the productivity side with, you know, you had mentioned, you know, productivity software. Like how do you prepare in a way, given those different facets, and I'm sure there's more, in order to, you know, make sure that a team is ready to scale before you actually get into the activity of doing that?
Yeah, it really depends on where in the process of that growth you are to define those actual preparation steps. But one thing that, like, one rule of thumb that has worked really well for us is to keep our processes, keep those decisions that we make in order to, you know, like how our team is working, how our team is structured, keep those as fluid as possible, and set KPIs for the processes that we have to make sure these processes that we have, these decisions that we have made, how the productivity is measured, how the success of a team is measured, is also being measured, and, you know, is also being reviewed in an agile fashion, like the way we develop the product.
Yeah, it makes sense. Anything to add to that, Ryan or Manu?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point Salman's making here, and I think we tend to overlook again the people that are already there, and making sure that we take this as an opportunity not just to scale to new resources, but to grow the people that are there. And so you have to think about not just their productivity, but, you know, does bringing a new team in or a new person in allow you to grow the leadership skills of the folks that are already there, and give them clear goals as well, right? We think about, you know, if you get a university hire or a new hire in, setting clear goals and clear KPIs for them, but what does that mean for the folks that are there? Is there an opportunity to grow their career, grow their skills? You know, we have people ready for leadership roles, or we have people ready to learn new tech. And so I think that's often overlooked during that scaling process.
Yeah, Manu, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I agree with what they just said. I want to add, like, so again, I was telling you that in my previous work, like, it was really like hard when we put processes in place. So in order to like be more productive, we added a lot of processes, and then these processes killed our productivity. So like at Waldo, we have like one particularity, like we only have senior people. So it's really make the difference, because you don't have to think about how are we gonna onboard new talent and like junior people, because that's gonna like require more hours, and it's something that we want to do, but not right now. We want to focus on having senior people in a senior team, and so I think it's also changed how you approach productivity and ownership. And I think it's really like when we speak about scaling a team, it's just like, oh, we want like many developer, many engineers. But to me, it's also like, what kind of seniority do you want in your team? Because the scale is not going to be the same. And so, and like also when we started to scale the team at Waldo, I think it's really important that we discussed with people and not like, oh, we need to do process. Because like if I'm adding like 5 new meetings in the week, I know my engineers are gonna knock on my door and say, like, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do a retro. We don't want to do this meeting. Like it's kind of boring. So I want to work with them, and they're really like they're pushing ideas all the time, and I really want to thank them for that. But they are part of that scaling, so they have to raise when they are not happy about the process, and they want to participate into that, and let all the company know that they want to grow, but they want to do it like in a way that it's not going to change their daily work. because they choose Waldo and that team for a reason, and we don't want that to change too much. So I really think it's a step-by-step thing.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Kind of incrementally, kind of attacking that and making sure. I think with the eye on the prize, right, is that the end user, whoever that may be, basically isn't impacted, and they are only receiving kind of the positive benefits of that. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I think, currently at DraftKings, we've seen that kind of scale as well, and that, this whole, focus on the customer experience is really kind of pushed to the top as far as something that you measure. But I'm curious, you kind of touched on something, Manu, in that you said, the process. So I'm curious what everybody thinks about just the processes that are involved. And you mentioned it specifically for like, senior level, but I'm sure there's kind of a mixture here among the group as far as kind of junior and senior level and what the team makeup are. But what are some like factors or, some metrics that you use specifically to measure success, particularly in a time where maybe the team is growing? So, Ryan, you mentioned, not necessarily leaving, maybe anybody who is already on the team kind of behind, and making sure that they're considered for, learning opportunities, leadership, growth, and just in general becoming, I think we all just want to become better engineers. And so I'm curious to the group, and maybe I'll start with Ryan, is, what specific, metrics do you use to track, maybe things like velocity or volume, as far as, productivity is concerned, but specifically in the lens of whenever you're trying to scale a team?
Yeah, and obviously the velocity one's an obvious one, because you want to look at the contributions of your new members and if there's any degradation of contributions of your old members, and make sure your process is aligned. But what we actually try to incorporate, and this is easier said than done, is client ROI. So if you are it doesn't matter what you're delivering. We really want to have that cycle back through support and services to make sure that what you're delivering isn't just 8 story points, right? We want to make sure that you're actually having an impact on client success. And so again, much easier said than done, but we've spent a lot of time, whether it's through MPS or direct reach out with clients, trying to capture that as a metric into long-term scalability, right? Not, the first week you're there, you're probably not having any client impact, but we do want to add that to the normal dev process, things like velocity and other items like
that. Yeah, makes sense. Salman, I saw you kind of nodding your head there. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, our metrics are for the engineering side are similar to what Ryan said. Yeah, velocity, we have PR throughput, even some more detailed stuff like PR size, rework, for example. But what I want to raise attention to here is that these metrics, these KPIs, they are not really, for us, it doesn't mean that this is like a measure of success of the team. It's more like if something is wrong with like one or couple of these metrics, we need to, like, these are sort of red flags. We need to dig deeper, figure out what's been happening. To give you an example on the rework side, so for us, rework is a newly written code that has been rewritten. And newly written is like in the last 3 weeks, let's say, or like in the last 4 weeks, 2 sprints. So if we are working on existing code, like existing features, that number should be something like, on average for us, it's below 7% of the code that we are writing is being reworked. But sometimes when we are working on new projects, and it's especially projects with multiple moving parts and like areas that need more exploration from an engineering perspective, that rework can go really high. So it's not a goal to keep it low or below a certain threshold. It's more of a, if it goes red, we'll go and look into it to see what is blocking our team to help unblock it, or like we see if everything is working well.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Manu, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I want to rebound on something that Ryan said about like they're probably not going to have client impact in the first week. That's the opposite for us. Like there is one objective for new hire, they have to ship something that's customer facing in their first week. And the goal of that is like, first, they're gonna see the whole stack. I mean, not the technical stack, but like they're gonna have to discuss with product, with design, maybe sometimes it's just API, but like they're gonna have to discuss with product marketing, customer success to announce the feature, to like post it on the like announcement system on Slack and all that stuff. And I think it's really good for like an engineer to see that they have impact. And I would say that's kind of our motto for how we work and how we measure that velocity. Is like, we don't do numbers. I mean, we have KPI, of course, like product KPIs, but we don't measure like, oh, is this engineer shipping more than this other engineer, or compared to like something else. It's like, it's kind of qualitative, I would say, like on the shipping, like, do they ship? And I think we have engineers that really wants to ship. And so we're like, every day I share the Zenhub board. So we're also using Zenhub, Salman. And I share our Zenhub board, and everyone is saying like, okay, what did I do yesterday? What I'm going to do today? And we're going to scale that into squads. But right now we kind of see if things are moving forward. And also we see the excitement of things going out. And also, like, we're like early stage, so obviously we need to ship, and we see people and like engineer being excited about like, oh, I shipped that. And we don't have like strict process, or everything should be like released on a X day, or like it's ready, we ship and we ship and we ship. And so that's how we measure that. If we don't see stuff deployed, we have a problem. And we see that on Slack. We have a bot every time we deploy. So it's really easy for us to see, oh, like this guy just deployed. It's moving forward. We're moving forward. We're shipping. So that's.
Can I just add something real quick, Rob? I love that.
Please.
I love that, because one of the things I was thinking about ahead of this is for an application. So most of our applications are over a decade old. So we're talking a lot of complexity. And when you bring somebody in new, you can't give them everything, but you also don't want to box them in. And so one of the things we do, maybe not in the first week, maybe not as quick as you guys do, but one of the things we do is we start them with client directly impacting, whether it's an issue or a functional change, because it gives them immediate insight into how our clients are using the tool. And it does also offer them an immediate win, right? It gives them, even if it's just a tiny little slice of the pie, it gives them an immediate win. And they start to understand. They might not understand the whole tech stack, they might not understand everything we're doing, but they understand how our clients are using the tool a lot faster. And so I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm in the same. As soon as you said that, right, they ship in the first week, I was just like over here, like, I got to double click into that, because that is, it's, I mean, one, impressive. And obviously it's, it's a very interesting, kind of subject to dive into from a variety of facets, right, or a variety of perspectives. Is it, and maybe I was hoping to kind of get into this a little bit later, but I feel like we have to get into it now. But I'm curious about onboarding in that type of situation. So Manu, I'll start with you, and then Salman, I'll get to you next, I promise. Is it, I'm curious, like, what does onboarding look like in a situation where, you want somebody to ship something within the first week? How does that, is that kind of like trial by fire, like get in there and ship it?
Yeah, kind of. They're going on the front directly. I think the first thing to have is like to have a good internal documentation, and that's something we're moving. I mean, we're keep improving. For every time someone arrives, like, is gonna have to do the like install the stack. Just like, we don't want someone to have to install the stack for 1 week. Like, oh, the Docker container and all that stuff, and like, oh, where are the credentials? And it's first, like, it's really depressing for someone who just arrived. Oh, I'm going to be alone in my computer just doing my setup. So, and we are not perfect. We're like, we have many services, so we have to improve. But having a good internal documentation is really important. So they feel that it's going to be simple to ship. Not technically simple in terms of code, but in terms of setup and in terms of flow. Then they have a buddy, and I think we're going to speak about that after, but they have a buddy. So, and it's not someone from their team, so it's someone from the company but outside of their team, so they can also feel how it's going to be to like start at Waldo. And of course they can talk to their manager, and we have our daily every day, so they can ask if they're blocked. But they have a good documentation, and when they arrive they have one ticket for them that is ready. Most of the time it's a tagged like good first issue that we saw in the last few months, or like, oh, like if we have a new front end, we have to do this one. So we're going to wait until we have someone new to do this one. And it's a customer facing issue, but again, it can be backend and an API endpoint like to create. And so there is a ticket sometimes too, like, okay, create the documentation for that new feature. Like here is the design and here is the plan. And they just have to move forward as they're also installing all the stuff that they need for the long term. But you don't need everything. You don't need like I don't know, like working on the DB if you're just doing like a front-end ticket. And I think at the end of the week, it's really good for them to see that they had impact. It's done. Like they're part of the team. They are contributor, and there is no way to go back. It's written on the code, and I think we like that.
Yeah. So I think what I heard there is that you have something ready for them to go, like a ticket. Preferably no P0s. It sounds like. Don't hand them a P0 the first week. It sounds like really good internal documentation, and then basically keep the scope limited, right? Is that they don't need to bite off everything, from a installation or setup. I personally, I'm with Ryan. I love that. I think it's get somebody in, get somebody hit the ground running and contributing. Salman, I'm interested in your thoughts on that, and just maybe onboarding in general.
Sure. Before onboarding in general, on what Manu mentioned, I really loved it. And one trick that we use to also keep that internal documentation up to date is that one of the goals for new hires is to find an improvement that we can make on the internal documentation. Find something that is now outdated, something that needs more clarification. And so far, I was just thinking, I don't remember a single new hire that had not found an issue in our internal documentation. Like there's always something that can be improved. So this is a really good a good way of keeping it up to date. And on the onboarding in general, so what we use is that, I was just talking to Rob the other day and about I've worked in 3 different continents, and I've seen 3 different ways of onboarding and setting metrics for success and everything. And I was just telling him that I'd seen the whole spectrum from having a very detailed hour by hour checklist of your first week and first month of what you need to do, until like the other side where it's a code base, just push them in, go in and figure it out yourself. Yeah. And like neither of these work. Like we have had negative feedback for both sides, and what has been working for us at the moment really well is that we have 2 sets of guidelines. Like one is an HR guideline. It's because of where we are in our company growth at the moment. We do need that HR guideline of what you need to prepare for yourself for the next 3 months on your job, and that also includes like pairing up with different functions and disciplines in the company, attending a marketing call, attending a sales call as an engineer to see what our customers say, what do they want. And on the engineering side, we do have a checklist with some. It's more of goals for you to set how to prioritize your days and weeks and months on your first 3 months of onboarding. And what really works well with that is a buddy system, where the moment you join the company, you have someone next to you that you can ask your questions to, and also they bring the next level of also that not just the documentation and the processes that are documented, but someone that you can reach out to anytime and feel more comfortable in the whole onboarding process.
Yeah, so I think. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to add to that, because I love these ideas. one of the things we do is to develop onboarding software. And so this isn't just an engineering or a tech space where buddy systems or ready to work is important. We preach this to all our clients, whether you're in retail or tech or in a hospital, physical readiness to work is overlooked constantly. I don't know how many people on the call or will listen to the future have started a job and they didn't have a uniform, or they didn't have a laptop, they didn't have a badge. That physical readiness to work goes a long way to keeping people, right? To keeping them happy, to getting them in the door, and then not losing them immediately. The buddy system that both Manu and Salman talked about is also just a great industry standard, and people do it a lot of different ways. The way we've done it in the past is sort of a dual buddy system. So you'll have, if you're starting an engineering role, you'll have somebody who's in your team or in your space, and then you'll have a company mentor, especially at a larger company, to help you navigate HR and whatever it is, your new location if you're moving for your work, things like that. And those stay with you not just when you're onboarding, but can stay with you throughout your career. The other thing we found really successful is starting those relationships before you start, especially with younger university hires or somebody who is moving. You don't want to wait until day one, right? We want to get people reaching out ahead of time, especially in a competitive marketplace where people might be taking multiple offers. You want to get them in the door and keep them. And so I think that's really not just from a scalability of a team perspective, but to keep the talent at the company you've worked so hard to recruit.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point. I think it all kind of centers, if I'm kind of gathering what all of you guys have said, is that there's certainly be something to be said with organization and perceived organization when you hit the ground running, or when either before you start or when you start, because I think it sounds like, anyways, that it instills confidence, and I can say that for sure. You get into, I've had experiences where you get into a new place and, like we've kind of joked about, they just hand you a machine and that's it. Like, you basically, you get the machine and then you got to start asking around, or, you got to start poking around the internal system to try to find hopefully something that's up to date, to get you, started in a way that, that you can be productive, hopefully within that first week or two. But it sounds like what we're talking about is, being able to just from the very start of it, have the organization there, or the process, not maybe over process, but a process in place that makes people productive. It instills confidence, but then also can get them contributing, which I think all of us want to do, right? I mean, we're all itching to be able to, to contribute. And I think that does a lot for, just in general, as I've kind of mentioned, our confidence. Curious, Manu, do you have any more thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I wanted to add something on, and it's like, I'm rebounding on what you guys said, but like, to me, the onboarding starts on the first interview, when they start the hiring process, because they are gonna remember that process during their entire period at your company. And so, and that's something I'm really happy that we have, thanks to Leah and Meredith, who are working, doing an amazing job in HR. But like, we are onboarding them, like discussing with them, helping them all along the process. Like, they have a guide on what's going to happen, on what do they need to prepare, how they should be ready for that interview, if they have questions, to think about it. Because again, we just don't want to just send an offer. And to me, like, hiring is both ways. They're also interviewing us. So it's really like a partnership starting there, because like, if it's kind of sketchy during the hiring process, when they start, their first days are going to be like, they're going to be stressed. They're gonna, I'm not sure they're gonna answer to my questions, because they were not really like responsive during the hiring process. So it's really important. And when you start the relationship and the partnership there, they're coming with like happiness and smile, and they want to have everything. And so of course they're gonna receive a machine, but they're gonna also receive like a small card with like, hey, welcome on board, and all that stuff. I mean, I think now it's pretty common, but it's really important to like let them know that since the beginning of the process, we want them to be part of the team, and we really like guide them through a success path. And it's really like something that needs to be both way. we need to learn from their arrival, and we want them to learn how we work.
Yeah, it makes sense. And even Salman kind of mentioned that too, of people being able to bring in their own specific skill sets or vantage points to kind of pick up on documentation updates and stuff like that. And it makes sense. I'm curious, pivoting just a little bit, not much, but like on the onboarding process has kind of changed. I think we all know over the past couple of years, just due to a lot more remote work. And with that, right, comes a variety of factors, from an onboarding perspective, but also just, remote distributed teams. And, as we even kind of keyed in on getting, people to start or, from day one or from interview one, I'm curious, are there any cultural differences or anything that you all have noticed, either combination of kind of distributed remote teams or just, people coming in from different areas and kind of their expectations of what creates a productive team or what they envision themselves, being productive. Salma, maybe start with you on this. Anything that you've seen over the past couple of years in that regard.
Yeah, as you mentioned, not just our industry, like the way most of people work has changed in the last couple of years, and I think it's like the impact of that is really different based on your company size and your access to resources. Everyone wants to have everyone wants to break silos, have documentation ready for everything, for your code, for your processes, have your communication somewhere central, your knowledge base somewhere central. But if you are a small company growing up, and there's you might not have those resources to achieve that optimum level that you're looking for. So it's really important to find that perfect line where you're not making knowledge silos. You make sure that the knowledge is shared, the communication is done in a way that others can also access it, especially if they're in different time zones. But at the same time, you're not overdoing it. So it's in a way that you can still focus on your product development. You can have your engineers focus on product development.
Yeah, it makes sense. Ryan, anything to add to that?
I think that's great, and I think it's 100% true. I think the change in people's work habits, whether driven from COVID or not, actually have benefited some companies and some groups, because if you come from a distributed team, right, and you've got people in 6 different time zones spread across the world, there can be this sort of innate fallback to boxing people's work, right? The Ireland team's going to do this, the team in Prague's going to do this, the team in Vizag's going to do X, because they're together. Whereas as people all went home, and for better or worse, work hours sort of shifted into a nebulous time zone, it allowed us to not box people in. And that goes for new people to the team as well as old. It gave everybody more opportunities to interact with each other and grow their skills, but it also enables us to have that lack of segregation and all the buzzwords, breaking down silos. So it's not a panacea. It's obviously not perfect, but I think it is an opportunity that some teams have done really well.
Yeah, I'm curious, kind of building a little bit off of that, because now we're starting to get a little bit into, we've kind of hit onboarding, we've hit distributed workforces in this, and I want to make sure that I kind of want to look at, keying in on that distributed nature, like everybody kind of, as you mentioned, Ryan, kind of working different hours, working, in a more productive way in a lot of ways. I'm curious, how does that affect the SDLC? How does that affect you? You kind of hit on this, this point where you had certain groups of people. Maybe you've got DevOps engineers, you've got testers in certain pockets, and now everybody is distributed. So Manu, I'm interested on your thoughts on this. Have you seen an impact at all just in the SDLC, process, because of that?
Yeah, I think remote work is a big subject, and we are based in Brooklyn, but we also have a pretty important team in France. working remotely. So what we do is like the first week we want them to see people. So we're organizing something so they can come in New York if they want, or if they can't, we're doing kind of also we're doing an on-site in Paris, or like we choose a city and they can see other people, so they're not lonely and they're not like, oh, I'm gonna start like alone. So that's something that to me is really important. And to go like a bit more in detail in what you just said, like it has to be thought, like especially for hours. Like I think all of the time zone does not work. And I mean, at some point you have to be honest with that. I mean, at least in our company, we cannot work with people that are like too many like time zone difference. It's going to be like, especially for code reviews, and we don't want them to just work with French people, or like French people are just going to work with French people, and like people in LA, we just work with people in LA. And I think that's creating silos, exactly. So we want them to be able to talk to each other in a way that they are not waiting all day for someone to wake up. And we don't have found a clear solution right now. It's something that everyone, and I'm sure you guys are the same, so like a position right now where we need to find what's the best rules and guidelines to be able to solve that. What we try to do is always, so of course, always communicate all these async basic rules, but it's also discuss, like not in like, oh, what did you do? Just like open the conversation. I'm like, how do you feel? Like, do you feel lonely? Do you like, and what can we do to like make it better? And because again, and I'm not like reinventing the wheel, like if they're happy, they're gonna be productive, you know? So if they feel lonely, if they feel alone, if they feel in a silo, they're not gonna be productive because they're gonna be like sad. So for me, the recipe is to keep them happy. I mean, keep all of us happy and motivated, because when we are in that mood, we ship.
Yeah, I love that. I love how everything ends with "we ship," because I certainly believe you now, kind of going into this, and that's pretty awesome. Is it? And I think you kind of touched on something too, which I hadn't originally like intended, but the isolation factor of that. And it sounds like you keep a pretty good finger on the pulse. I remember whenever I mean, I started going, I was fully remote back in 2014, so I'd been fully remote for a long time. But one of the things that I was able to relay with people that I worked with as COVID started, it sounds like very similar, is, you know, just staying in contact with people, you know, through whatever mediums that you can, you know, kind of keeping a finger on that pulse of how are they feeling about that. Because I think, you know, a lot of times whenever we get into remote work, or maybe the concept of remote work, it's like all fun and games whenever we see it from the outside. But then whenever you're doing it day in and day out, and if you're anything like me, you kind of wake up in the morning, some sweatpants and some coffee, and it's dark outside. By the time you look, it's dark outside again, because I haven't gotten up and really done anything. And so separating, you know, kind of, you know, work and life, and a lot of that thing can be difficult. And then I say that facetiously kind of, but I mean, that obviously can have an impact on, you know, just the, you know, people's desires, and, you know, how they're feeling about the, you know, the job at the time, especially whenever they're starting off. Salman, I'm interested. Have you seen any of that? And if so,
Yeah.
have you guys done anything to adjust, or to, you know, kind of, you know, monitor that, I guess, you know, as people get started?
Yeah, in this remote world, it's so easy for people, especially new hires, to feel left out. It's so easy, like especially when you during that onboarding process, because during that time they'll most probably miss some of the team ceremonies, because there's, you know, some other onboarding sessions that they need to attend, or they have a different agenda on the first month that they need to go through. So the most important, like the key factor here is for the team, and especially the hiring manager, to know, like, understand the situation, understand that it's like this is a pitfall, this is a challenge, and to proactively reach out. And this is what I've been trying with our new hires, is that on the first week I make sure to reach out to them, like on the beginning of their day and when they're wrapping up their day. Like these are just as you and Manu mentioned, like these pulse checks. Make sure, like, if there's something, I'll know if they're stuck, if there's something that they need some more help or guidance with, I'll know, because as like even in a on-site company, it's really easy for members of a team not to reach out to their manager, because like they don't know if the manager is busy, if they might have too much on their plate. So it's manager's job to reach out to them, and in a remote world, a lot more important than before.
Yeah, and it brings up a good point too, probably of balance, because there's probably a healthy balance there between checking in enough and not checking in too much, where it starts to kind of micromanage, like, hey, how you doing? Did you pull that code? Hey, did you pull the code? How's that working? Is it compiling now? You probably don't want to, take to that level of detail. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Ryan, anything to add to that, or anything that you've seen, over the course of the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, Manu said something about, are you happy, right? Checking in emotionally, and I think that's really important. We, even in regular one-on-ones with resources who've been there for years, when your manager reaches out, your instinct is to say, this is all I've accomplished, right? I'm accomplishing all of these things. Here's where I'm blocked technically. Here's who's angering me today. But we often forget to ask, is there anything I can do for you, right? And this may seem silly, but one of the things we try to have as a mantra is, how's your family, right? What's going on in your life that isn't about this place, right? Because especially with new hires, they get in, they think they have to, they can't take vacation, they have to prove their worth right away. And I think that emotional health is really important. The other thing I was going to sort of piggyback on was about, when you have these distributed teams, and yeah, remote works great, but you really do lack that socialization. And so trying to find some way to replace that, whether it's, again, a buddy system where somebody's not in your group, but you can meet for a meal, or, not every company can do that, but if you have that in place, or you can find small places like that. This might just be my experience, but when COVID started, everybody started doing remote events, trivia days, remote happy hours, whatever it was. And yeah. I think that worked really effectively, but you have to constantly evolve, whether you're going back to the office or not, to make sure that those folks feel connected. And then I think from a leadership perspective, yes, blurring hours can make work better, but you have to remind everybody that they shouldn't be working 24 hours a day. Again, I'm picking on you, I'm sorry, but the thing about you don't want everybody in LA working with everybody in LA, but you also don't want them waiting for an answer. And it really is about balance. So I don't know that anything I said is tangible, Rob, but I think I agree with what everybody said.
No, I think personally, I agree. I mean, I think it resonates pretty well with me. I mean, even the part where you talked about kind of the work-life balance. I mean, myself, my wife and I have a 2-year-old. So, we had him like at the very beginning of the pandemic. There's been all of these things between, kids get sick, and then, there's closures for daycare and stuff like that. And one of the things that I found, and of course, probably some people out there with kids probably don't care, but the idea of it is that, I worked at some really great places that basically were really considerate, knowing that there's just a lot of stuff happening, right? Both parents, in my wife and I's case, kind of working at home in this tiny little apartment with a 2-year-old, and everybody has factors like that. Not exactly the same, but in that time, especially over throughout COVID, it was stressful for everybody for a variety of different factors, and so I think it was really important. So I think what you said, Ryan, I think probably resonates with a lot of people out there. But one of the things I want to do is kind of shift it a little bit, get into the tech. We mentioned it a little bit early on, where we talked about like pockets of developers or groups of particular team members that maybe did certain things in certain areas. But what I'm curious about, and maybe I'll start with Manu, is that have you seen things change, like demand for certain roles, and kind of as an example for that, a cloud-based computing now. I mean, if you look at all the major cloud providers, if you look at the stock prices, I mean, they were just like through the roof. And I think that it was because, in large part, with remote work and you having to get in and utilize those things, I think a lot of people made that move to the cloud or started utilizing services. So I'm curious, did you happen to see anything like that, in the lens of an SDLC? did you happen to see it change because of, distributed workforces and keeping teams productive?
So I don't know. I mean, to be honest, like because it's also really depends on on the stage of the company, and I just work on like early stage or starting to be scale up, but not too far, like not big companies. But what I see is like many tools to help you doing stuff. So yes, like for example, I remember when we were doing Jira stuff in my previous company, and documentation and it, like, not judging, but it was kind of painful. And now we're like doing things in Notion. It's great. Like everyone can start without like having to request permissions, like complex stuff. So yes, I think it helps to have like tools, like even like do you remember the meetings like 5 years ago, like with bad connections and like that was hard. Now like everyone like has a good camera, has a good like computer, and then it's not like blowing the hair of your computer because you're using like a Chrome for too long. So all this kind of stuff, yeah, is improving. And also like and I'm sure like Salman can talk about it, but like your productivity for engineers, and so like you'll help people being able to do that. I remember in my past company we also had like a real Kanban in the wall. I mean, we can't really do that here. I mean, I'm at the office right now, but like, yeah, I'll do it for me. But like, I'm not gonna film with my computer, like the Kanban in the wall. That's useless. But so I think you need a balance. And I personally come in the office every day because I like that. I work remotely sometimes when I travel, but I like being at the office because I'm changing my environment and I like it. But it's glad that we now have the tool, so it's not painful. But yeah, sometimes I just I'm tired of being in front of my computer for so long in a Zoom meeting. So I'm like, okay, I think I'm gonna go to Paris and I'm gonna see my team, or I'm gonna wait for the next offsite, or I'm gonna have a call with them that's not going to be in Zoom, but maybe in a coffee on FaceTime, speaking about something else that just work, to have like a relationship with them.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point. And Salman, I'm interested in your thoughts on this, is that the expectations have changed across the board. I think from, you mentioned a couple of things. I think from the technology standpoint, things that were kind of, annoyances and happened often with like drop connections or frame rates and a lot of these things, when we started to go fully remote, all those things had to be resolved, right? I mean, it couldn't just be that, these things were gravy, like good connections were gravy. They were necessities at that point. And then you hit on a little bit of it for expectations, I think, for new team members. We talk a lot about keeping the teams productive themselves. And I think one of the things that we've really hit on today is that, obviously the company needs to be, satisfied whenever they're bringing somebody in to, perform a role or job or something like that. But a lot of it is on, team members being satisfied as well. And the expectations for that are, I wouldn't say, are higher. Maybe in some cases they are, but they're different. Where, this work-life balance, this ability to, in office, out of office balance, it has changed for the better, I think, in a lot of ways. And I think we're pretty spoiled probably in software for what we're able to accomplish. But Salman, I'm interested, kind of keying off on that, if you happen to have any thoughts.
Yeah, when you mix this working remotely and also in a company that's growing, the challenge is even like double. So Rob, you were talking about like the whole software development life cycle and the tools that we integrate into it. Like that's exactly what ZenHub has been doing to make sure, first of all, like we can answer our immediate product and engineering needs, but also we can prepare for coming our way with 10x customers. So automating stuff for us is the key. Like, to give you an example, we have recently moved from a manual QA testing process to a fully automated one. And we are investing even more into it I know Manu is happy about that, because that is something that I am personally an advocate of. Moving towards automated testing, and we are even investing more in the coming quarters into this. It won't be an overnight or an easy change for most companies, but this is something that if you want to unlock your team to grow, if you want to unlock the potentials in your team, this is one of the things that you need to have. Similar to automatically be able to measure productivity, automatically be able to plan your sprints, and plan your prioritize your epics. To give you another example, pre-remote, Slack was a sync communication tool. You'd send a message, like I was sending a message and I was expecting an answer in 30 seconds. Like, we are all in the office, you're there, and like we were in the central location, everyone's on the laptop. Now it's an async communication. Like the way you use the tool has also changed. Or to give you another example, we used to have poker planning sessions. Like there's a ticket, we all give it a story point, and we agree on. Now, what we have noticed is that in a remote world, that won't be the easiest thing, especially if you have distributed teams, similar to what Ryan mentioned. So that's why one of the, I don't want to be promoting our tool, but one of the functionalities in ZenHub is an async planning session. You have the ticket, you can request a couple of engineers or people on a certain team to provide a estimation for it, and they can do it in, like on their own time. The moment everyone has their answer, the whole team can see the answer. They can elaborate on that. But I think these are the changes, and these are the even changes in how we use our existing tools in the whole software development life cycle that needs to change in a full remote and also in a growing company.
Yeah, yeah, of course, please.
Oh,
yeah,
I was just gonna. Sorry, Rob.
No,
I like to interrupt. What I was gonna say is, I see these threads everybody's talking about, and just to go back to the tech stack question, right? Rob, you mentioned cloud. 5 years ago, we would have been talking about AI and how to work that into all of our code and our apps. I think when Salman mentioned earlier, giving the documentation over and saying what's wrong with this, and then Manu saying, hey, we want you to ship in the first week so you feel like you're contributing. And so we can measure you, but so you feel like we're contributing. One of the things we do that sort of is the cross section of that is we sit everybody down and we say two things. We say, what is frustrating you today? It doesn't have to be with our app, it doesn't have to be with something, what do you want to fix at work? And then what about the tech stack, especially for new hires, is frustrating you? Like, can you even imagine that we're running this decades-old tech stack? Like, what's your solution? What's frustrating you? And it lets them contribute right away, because half the time, just with documentation, the dev that's been there 10 years wanted to fix that, right? They wanted to insert cloud tools or an AI component into an app, but they didn't have time. And so you get that cross section of contributing right away and making the product better. And so I think it's just really important across the board.
Yeah, and I think what we're starting to kind of focus in on too is like an overarching kind of theme of what we're talking about is developer experience, and really improving the developer experience, whether it be through developer productivity or onboarding or even automated test. This ability to basically make the lives and experiences of developers easier and more fulfilling, so they can ultimately focus on innovation. Manu, I know we touched on testing, and I'm actually I'm really impressed that you held yourself at bay for so long, but I'm curious of your thoughts as we kind of touched on some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, it's and again, the goal is not to promote Waldo, but obviously I recommend all of you to try on waldo.com. No, honestly, I remember when I was at Aircall, previous company, where I was doing product and design, and I was like testing, so obviously installing test flight and all this stuff and trying, and I was sitting next to the mobile engineers, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna try the application. I was like, oh, I have a bug, and like I was showing, do you see there is a bug here? Okay, I'm gonna try to reproduce. Okay, so, and he was taking a phone and doing it again, and it was working, kinda. No, it was not really working, but we were at least at the same spot. So I was able to show them and like, okay, click on it. And we were like using both ends to like try to do something and make it work. This does not work with remote work. So like, and yes, yeah, like Waldo is helping that, but it's just like in general, like we need the tools, but we don't need too much tools. That also can be a trap. So we need to find the one that works, the one that does not work, and to make it scale. So we have to choose like, okay, this tool is gonna like help us to go from 0 to 5 million ARR, and then maybe we're gonna switch to another one, but we're gonna stick to that one. And so for example, for Notion or whatever, and then we are gonna move to another system. For testing, I think we've seen some customers early stage to IPO with us, and we're like, oh, okay, it scales and it helps us during that time of pandemic also. So before, during, and after the pandemic and maybe recession, like all, it's really important to see that your product, and I think that's what I want to focus on, and that's my job, to make sure that our products work with the time changing. So like, okay, pandemic happened. Those people can work, like, can people work on Waldo? Yes, they can, and it helps. So yeah, and I'm sure like Salman, you have the same with Zenhub, where like, okay, people, they cannot do program planning anymore, so they have to find a solution.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, it looks like we are getting close to the top of the hour. So I want to make sure everybody has what I would say kind of the elevator pitch, or an opportunity to give your elevator pitch of how do you create an environment of being able to scale and maintain productivity while you do so. Now in the current climate of development, like how do you do that? So what's your elevator pitch on that, Salman?
This is something that I mentioned early in this session. Keep processes open to change. You don't need to write it on a stone, and set KPIs for your processes. If you have, to give like a tiny example, if you have a process around your PR throughput or time to ship, be open to look into it, to change it, and also you should be able to set KPIs. So why do we have this process? And there should be some key metrics to measure failure and success of this process, because you also don't want processes to hurt other parts of your like whole product development process. So this would be my like one single advice.
Yeah, no, I love it. Ryan, what about you? Any advice?
Have a vision for the people that are already there. Make sure they know about it. Have a vision for the people coming in. Make sure they're ready to work, and be ready to be wrong. I think be ready to hear why your documentation is wrong, why your tech stack is wrong. We used to say the best QA is somebody who's never seen your tool. So that goes across the tech world, right? Be ready to listen and be wrong.
I can tell you from personal experience, I'm always ready to be wrong. It's something I'm always used to and expecting. What about you, Manu? I'll let you finish it up here.
Yeah, I would say unlock your team. They want to ship. Like if you ask them, they want to ship, and so win-win. So let them ship, and just put in place some system to make sure that if there is a mistake, like it's gonna be catch. So like it's gonna be code. So like yes, we speak about testing, but if they want to ship fast, so let them ship fast and make sure that everything is in place, so you're not breaking your production, of course, but give them the mic, and you will see that they just want to be as productive as you want.
Manu, I think you need to contact some marketing people with this slogan immediately after this. Let them ship fast. I feel like every marketing person will love you for that. With that, I'd like to say thank you very much to our panelists. This has been an awesome, really enlightening conversation. You come up with different experiences, but somehow I think we all kind of rallied around the same points, which was awesome. I really appreciate it. I want to thank Waldo for putting this on, and most importantly, I want to thank everybody in attendance. Thanks so much for letting us banter back and forth about some of the things and experiences that we've had over the last few years, and how we see the industry even going forward. This has been just an awesome session. At the end of this, there is a survey. So there's just a couple of questions. We're really interested to know, things that we've, maybe done well or maybe not done well today, or even topics that you're interested in future webinars. So if you happen to have a second, it doesn't take very long, fill out the survey afterwards. Again, I'd like to say thank you very much for attending this webinar, and we hope to see you on the next one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.